Hey everybody, how's it going? Thanks for stopping by for our weekly Wednesday night live stream. For those new to the channel, click the subscribe button, click the bell. We're gonna have a good time tonight. The world is a better place because Rush Limbaugh has died. And that's just a reality. That's just a reality. We're going to talk about it on this stream. Some of the things he said, some of the things he's done. But without hyperbole, when you think of how at the very least American, and in some ways like global, or at least English world, so the US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, England, like the political discourse in those countries has gotten so bad since the 1980s. You know, Rush Limbaugh might be the single biggest reason. Now, he's not the only reason, of course, but it might be the single biggest reason. And so, for people to be like, why is the left, why are non-conservatives sort of happy today? Well, it's because this man, as I noted in my videos earlier today, he got up every morning and said to himself, how can I make the world worse? And then by God, he did it. He went out there and he made the world a worse place to live. Simple as that. That's what he did. That's what he did. Like, just gotta fix it. Seems like it's a little off there. There we go. Yeah, like, absolutely crazy from my perspective. That people are like, oh, why are they sad? Couple super chats here. Samantha says, Rush can rest in piss with Ronald Reagan and Thatcher. Yeah, a lot of people were sharing that old clip of Thatcher, or, on the day Margaret Thatcher passed away a few years ago, where she passed away, and they asked an elderly lady, like, what do you think about this? And she's like, well, I would drive a stake through her to make sure she didn't come back. And then the journalist was like, isn't that something awful to say about a woman on the day of her funeral? She's like, too bad. I'm trying to do a Scottish accent. I can't do it. You guys have all seen the clip. And like, the point is, it's like, look, we do not have to feel bad when truly awful people pass away. We don't. We can acknowledge that, like, their families miss them. We can acknowledge that some people love them. We can acknowledge that some people are sad. And for those people, like, there's nothing wrong with it. But, like, fundamentally, I don't have to feel bad when Rush Limbaugh passed away. And, like, look, this man was not a good person. A lot of people have been reminded of some of the things he's done. I mean, some of them I didn't even know. And I'm a guy who obviously follows politics. Ben Shapeward said it looks like Sheldon Adelson has a new cellmate. Yeah. I mean, I'm not personally one that suggests people are suffering eternal damnation. That's not me judging people who don't. I tend not to make that revelation because as somebody, I'm not a super religious person, but I don't think any mortal has the right to condemn any other mortal to some sort of spiritual justice. But, like, certainly you might suggest that it would not be unheard of maybe Adelson and Limburg to be reunited in this moment. For those who don't know, Sheldon Adelson, less famous than Limbaugh, was a very high-profile conservative donor who gave billions, I assume over his many years, gave billions to right-wing causes. Joseph says, remember when Rush Limbaugh got fired by ESPN? Fun times. No, I don't. I don't even remember that. I do not even remember that, Joseph. Like, I don't know. Somebody's like, right on time for my birthday. I mean, I hope you, in addition, that you, if this was your birth, I hope you also got, like, a more conventional present. Like a cake, or maybe, like, your favorite video game or something. In addition to a awful person leaving this mortal coil. I mean, like, let's be clear. This guy mocked Michael J. Fox and his ailments. This guy said awful things about immigrants, about racialized people, black pro athletes. He compared them to like gang members, like just awful stuff. He also, as my camera just feels like it's off kilter today, guys. I want to fix that because it's a little distracting. So, excuse me for a second while I take a quick gander at this. I think that's better. I don't know. It's better enough for now. So, like, he did all those things. And, like, one thing I didn't know of, and this is a thing that some people pointed out to me, was he did, like, back during the late 80s, early 90s, when he was rising in prominence and was becoming a national figure because right-wing talk radio went national. Before that, he was a local guy, I think, in Sacramento. He did like a week where he would, a segment of his show where he would mock people suffering from AIDS. At a time where, in particular, gay men were being so demonized for that illness. And of course, it affected more people than just the gay male community. But at a time when that illness was so stigmatized, he dedicated time on his show to mocking some of the most victimized people at that time in American society. Oh, did I say Lindbergh? If I said Lindbergh, I meant Limbaugh. I might have said Lindbergh at some point. And so why should I feel bad for that man passing away? Why should I feel bad? So when everyone, like all these conservatives are like, the left is gloating over this man passing away, when it's like, no, it's like we are, like, okay, Limbaugh would liken himself a Christian. And he is being treated as he has treated so many others. Rush Limbaugh is being treated as he has treated so many others. Monica says, I feel bad saying Rush should have skull emojied 30 years ago. Look. There's like a reality here where like, would conservatism have been what it is without Rush Limbaugh? I don't know, right? Like, it's sort of like if you look at a historical evil figure and you say, oh, if that person was gotten rid of as a baby, like, that would have stopped this awful event from happening. But probably not, right? Probably not. Probably not. Do you know what I mean? And so the reality is, like, you need to realize that, right? You need to realize that, like, there are people that have had major effects, but when you think of Rush Limbaugh not getting his profile, think about, like, what could have been avoided, right? What could have been avoided? Oh, we got a very generous super chat. Thank you so much. Although if that is a typo, let me know and we'll see if we can fix that. Sevda, if that was an extra zero or something, we'll look at that. But thank you so much regardless. And I see a message retracted, but I think I saw it saying that, welcome from Turkey. And thank you so much for your support from across the way. So thank you. But in general, Yeah, that would, yeah. And so, Rush Limbaugh is a sort of figure that transformed the conservative movement. He really is. He really, really is. And so if you're a conservative, I get why you're like, I get why you're sad, but my goodness, guys, he really is awful. He really is awful. Like just other things like Rush Limbaugh did. Like we can look this up, right? Like Limbaugh helped to push like the pro law enforcement agenda. And like let's be real here. Because when you're as successful as Limbaugh, you don't just transform conservative politics. Like Limbaugh likely played a role in like the Democratic Party's right-wing movement. Right? He likely played a role in the Republican Party's, in the Democratic Party's right-wing movement. Because Limbaugh was one of these people that was like pushing this tough on crime agenda. Every day on his daily show, he would talk about urban crime, right? Talk about how young African-American men were making the country unsafe. And this rhetoric proved very popular. And so it's no surprise then, frankly, that like, that led to a lot of people believing it. And if you look at the rise of Bill Clinton, it's not a coincidence to see it and then see that connected to, see that everyone, Brianna can't join tonight. She's very busy with work, but she says bye to everybody. So say hi to Brianna, everybody. But like, I don't know why people are sharing Q things. Okay, honestly, indulge me, insulin going up person. Don't spam like that. Explain to me how Q can still be real. Operating under the assumption that QAnon was a real thing, explain to me how QAnon could be real. Like, explain to me. I'd love to know. Because, like, the whole theory was that the storm would come on or before January 6th. Excuse me, January 20th. Yeah, John Barlich, that's another great point. John with the super chat here says he also talked about how the left loves consent and how he thinks it's a bad thing. Yeah, Rush Limbaugh was of the mindset that like the left loved like feminism and gender equality were ruining like sex basically. And he felt that like no means no was bad because it was because women didn't feel comfortable saying yes and so sometimes said no, basically saying that like women only want to say no because they don't want to look easy, and it feeds into these really misogynistic tropes. Here, I found this good clip, and we're going to watch it together, because I do want to watch it with you guys. This is a good supercut I found of Limbaugh. Some of these things we've talked about, some of them we haven't, but I just wanted to play it for you guys, because I think it really does show, like, Rush's ridiculousness. Yeah, like, look, like, Rush Limbaugh, like, people were saying, Rush Limbaugh was extremely influential, and as a result, like, definitely played a major role in like shaping conservative politics, but also progressive politics, or at least neoliberal politics, right? Because like you have to remember that like his brand of conservatism was extremely successful. Extremely successful. And the fact of the matter is, when you're somebody like Rush Limbaugh that's very successful, what he was able to do in a lot of ways was drive the terms of the debate on both sides of the aisle. And so Rush Limbaugh was able to say, look, the fact of the matter is, like, the fact of the matter is, you don't have any way out of this except to buy into the Limbaugh narrative. Right? Like, Junkman asks if I'm part of the serfs. I am not, but I am friends with the serfs, and they are supporters of my show, and I'm supporters of theirs. But I'm not part of the serfs in any formal way. Okay, I'm just gonna mute that person. So the reality is, like, that crime bill happens in part because people like Rush Limbaugh convinced the country that it was needed. So I'm gonna crank this
now.
Okay, so this is a super cut of Rush. Let me know about the volume, guys.
Isn't that the point? Because it's not racist. That's the point. I could be talking about a male. I could be a Chinese male. A guy at the laundromat.
He defended the traditions of this country, and he spoke for tens of millions of us.
How many of you guys, in your own experience with women, have learned that no means yes if you know how to spot it? They didn't have time. They only had time to put Biden's name on these fake ballots and then feed them into the system. Dominion tabulators. And that they did, they fed an equal number of votes for both Trump and Biden.
John, the crime bill was multifaceted. The reality is that the Democrats, in part, look to the rising hegemony brought about by Rush Limbaugh. This isn't me blaming Rush Limbaugh for the crime bill in general, but suggesting that he was very successful at poisoning American discourse. So yeah, you can call it a criticism of Limbaugh. You might call it a compliment. The Democratic Party became the Clintonite party in part because of people like Rush Limbaugh. In part because of people like him. All the complaints you have about the Clintons don't happen without the vast rise of far-right talk radio that created a more right-wing country. Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton are manufacturers of the Republican movement. Bill Clinton is the Republican Party's greatest achievement because it proved that you could have two Republicans running at the same time. And so the crime bill is a Republican bill. Everything Bill Clinton did basically was Republican. Him having slave labor at his Arkansas mansion, I mean, that's rooted in old values, I guess. But, like, the crime bill is in part due to people like Rush. Yeah, 100%. 100%. That's not me saying Clinton's off the hook. But why did in 1992 it make sense for the Democrats to run an openly racist campaign? Because Rush Limbaugh mainstreamed racism in a way it hadn't been mainstream since literal Jim fucking Crow.
Spat out of the machine as a 26% lead for Biden.
Meanwhile, Al Sharpton goes out the front door. Yes, I spoke a little Negro dialect there. I can do that when I want to.
Jesus Christ. Like, I watched this already, and I'm still shocked.
In and out the front door.
A very decent and nice person, by the way. I'm sure others have said that, but it's true.
Is the cute kid in the White House? No, that's not the kid. That's the kid.
What is it?
Okay, so you might not have caught that one. That was Rush Limbaugh, an adult man, mocking a 13-year-old girl. Now look, Chelsea Clinton's awful now as an adult. And you guys damn well know, and I don't blame me. It's not my fault. But you damn well know, at some point, we're going to get an election, and it's going to be Chelsea Clinton versus Ivanka Trump. You know that's going to happen. You know it. I know it. It's going to happen. It's going to be Chelsea versus Ivanka. And it's going to be hell. It's going to happen, though. So, just, get ready for that. Get ready for that. But that is him mocking a child for not being hot? Rush Limbaugh doesn't want to have sex with this young girl. She's not hot enough for him, so he's going to call her a dog. Does Rush think that no means no from a teenager? Am I supposed to feel bad for this guy dying?
Say about the college co-ed Susan Fluke, who goes before a congressional committee and essentially says that she must be paid to have sex. What does that make her? It makes her a slut, right? Makes her a prostitute. She wants to be paid to have sex. If we're going to have to pay for this, then we want something in return, Ms. Fluke. And that would be the videos of all this sex posted online so we can see.
The thing that I think defines him the most, he loved this country. He was a patriot.
The coronavirus has been weaponized by the media and by opponents of Donald Trump as the latest weapon they might be able to use to get rid of him. Hospitals are not being overrun like you're being told. They call it sexual objectification, demeaning, not taking women seriously, but it's just the way of the world. Boys chase girls. But a tiny minority of these protesters, and undoubtedly including some Antifa Democrat-sponsored instigators, did decide to go to the Capitol to protest.
This is an absolute gut punch to conservatives in America, to Republicans in America.
You're a foreigner. Shut your mouth or get out. And if you come here illegally, you're going to jail. Political correct society is acting like some giant insult's taking place by calling a bunch of people who are retards.
I've been for trannies for a long time. I said, I don't know if...
So you could see, right? He's running the gamut. He's running the gamut of just all sorts of awful things. You name any group at all, and he's going to mock them and dehumanize them. Transgender people, women, African Americans, immigrants, really in a larger sense, just anybody. Oh, my mic just came off the thing there. Anybody that isn't a conservative, just absolutely wild stuff. I don't even know how that happened. Rush Limbaugh is attacking us, guys. This is the revenge of Rush. This is the revenge of Rush. So we're going to fix this. I'm going to put the thing back on while I fix it.
If you've heard otherwise, feminism was established so as to allow unattractive women easier access to the mainstream of society. It doesn't look like Michelle Obama follows her own dietary advice. I'm trying to say that our First Lady does not project the image of women that you might see on the cover of the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue. There are plenty of lard-ass women in politics, and they get a total pass on it.
But if you boiled it down he cut through a lot of noise and went to an issue beyond the back and forth that we cover every day.
Here you have a black president trying to destroy a white policeman. The media...
Did he... Yeah, Rush broke. Did he really... Did you guys hear that? Where, like, Rush Limbaugh was like... like, what did he call Michelle? Like, Michelle Obama, like, whatever you think of her, was an incredible... Like, where is that? And now he's like lard-ass women. Has he seen men in politics? Has he seen himself? Like, look, I don't make fun of people for their appearance. I don't like doing that. I don't think that's appropriate. I think that's harmful. I think it's counterproductive. I think it's wrong. But, like, Rush Limbaugh and Donald Trump and other people as well are like not what you would call stereotypical alpha male physical specimens. And yet, they feel, I guess, entitled is the word I'm looking for, to judge women's appearance. Like, they feel entitled to do it. Right? Like, he feels entitled to say, oh, Michelle Obama is not hot enough. He feels entitled to say that the women in Congress and the women in the Senate are like too frumpy or whatever. And it's like, look at you. Look at you.
Has been very desirous that a black quarterback do well. We're interested in black coaches and black quarterbacks doing well. I think there is a little hope invested in McNabb.
I am in no way an alpha. I am a proud Sigma male.
And he got a lot of credit for the performance of this team that he really didn't deserve.
You put your kids on a school bus, you expect safety, but in Obama's America, the white kids now get beat up with the black kids cheering, yeah, right on, right on, right on.
So David...
Jesus Christ. Like, that's not even a thing. Now, to be fair there, and I'll be fair to Rush, Joe Biden called busing the creation of a racial jungle even before Rush was a thing. So some of these things, it's not Rush being uniquely racist. It is Rush Limbaugh sort of acting as a prism for existing racisms and intolerances. So in some cases, Rush Limbaugh is like awful. And in other cases, it's just he's sharing conservative viewpoints mask off, but with an audience of like, I don't know, at his peak, I don't know how many daily listeners he'd have. I'm guessing maybe more than 1 million when you add up all the syndications, you know?
David Patterson will become the massa, who gets to appoint whoever gets to take Massa's place. So, for the first time in his life, Patterson's going to be a massa.
Those of us who have studied Kamala Harris, those of us who looked into her background, we know she's not African American. She doesn't have slave blood. She's not down for the struggle.
They have discovered that Obama does have slave blood.
That's a very difficult discussion for people to have. Like Rush there just confidently suggesting that he can weigh in on the nuances of the various natures of the African American community. And he's not doing it. 20 million, John Vick, 20 million. I say million's far too low. Like some of the big YouTube commenting channels will get 1 million views a day. I don't. I don't get 1 million views a day. But we'll get 1 million views a day. So you're right in saying that Rush should do far better than that. Yeah, and we still got a couple minutes left of this, minute and a half.
Preposterous that Caucasians are blamed for slavery when they've done more to end it than any other race.
If any race of people should not have guilt about slavery.
Yeah, the argument is that, and look, there are debates about this, but the argument is that the African American community is not monolithic, and there are differences between black people who have a verifiable, or at least largely verifiable, family history dating back to slavery versus other people that happen to be black in the United States that don't necessarily have that. And so what he's suggesting with the Obama case is that his father being a post-World War II immigrant from Kenya does not necessarily share into the traditional African-American slave narrative. But of course, Rush Limbaugh is not doing that to have a nuanced anthropological discussion. And of course, I think he was talking about Kamala Harris there. Her father is from the Caribbean, and Africans from the Caribbean share in the same very broad, although not identical history as African Americans.
Slavery, it's Caucasians.
Put it to you this way, the NFL all too often looks like a game between the Bloods and the Crips.
The way this can all be worked out, Clyburn's new position, driving Miss Nancy.
In the end, Powell will vote for Obama. There's no doubt of it. The titular head of the Republican Party, the ideal model Republican, will vote for Obama. Melanin is thicker than water, folks. The salesperson
Melanin is thicker than water.
obviously thought that the Oprah couldn't afford the, $38,100 bag. Maybe it's because the Oprah's fat. Well, that's another. How was the Oprah dressed? I mean, she didn't look like the Oprah, obviously. Was she wearing a jumpsuit with tennis shoes, maybe Air Jordans that were not laced up? I mean, who knows?
So for those who don't know what he's talking about there, that's a famous story about Oprah. You know, Oprah, one of the most famous women in the world, especially at the time when she was on TV every day. Oprah, maybe the most famous woman in the world at the time, except for Queen Elizabeth. Oprah got racially profiled when she was in some fancy store. And because she's a black woman. And, you know, because, yes, wealth and class does mitigate to some degree racial prejudice, but it doesn't eliminate it. And so he's trying to find any sort of excuse for why people would be racist to Oprah. Right? That's what he's doing there. That's what he's doing there.
We've lost a voice like no other, and like there will never be again. And particularly at a time when we need a voice like his.
You walk up to the woman and say, would you please ask your breasts to stop staring at my eyes?
One thing that always...
So, that was a good supercut. And guys, I know that does not include... like even a fraction of the awful things that man said. Doesn't even include a fraction. Obama's dad came to the United States sometime after World War II. So, that was Rush Limbaugh. And as you can see there, what the creators did was sort of juxtapose that to some of the recent eulogies of him today and, you know, over the past few months. Because a lot of people knew this was coming. Like, Rush Limbaugh had been very sick for about a year. Like, he announced, I believe, sometime last year, late 2019 or whatever, that he had very advanced cancer. And that generally is going to... lead to a quick death, because it was not necessarily a treatable cancer, and so these tributes had been coming, but you could see that like all of these things. Oh, he's a kind man, he's a visionary man, And, like, that's the real Rush Limbaugh. That's the real Rush Limbaugh. You know? So, I don't want to spend the entire time just going on this. I think just, like, a couple more things I would add would be, like, we have to kind of realize that, like, I don't think Donald Trump happens without Limbaugh. Like, I think, like, the way American politics shifts, I don't think Rush Limbaugh, a Trumpian-style candidate, finds his way to the presidency without Limbaugh. Right? Or without, like, the Limbaugh type thing. When you look at, even, like, in a modern sense, when you look at the Crowders of the world, and even to some degree the Shapiros and all these types of people, like, they are all intellectual children and grandchildren of Rush Limbaugh. Right? Like, that's why this is such a big deal. Like, he really is the founder of modern right-wing mass media. He really is. Well, yeah, and a lot of this is hypocrisy and projection, right? You damn well know, like Rush Limbaugh, he had issues with addiction. Right, he had issues with prescription medication abuse. He had issues with that. And in general, people deserve sympathy for that. But Rush Limbaugh was also a person that supported, like, the systematic demonization of the sorts of people that end up in the criminal justice system. And those people often also suffer from addiction issues. And so it's exactly one of these things. Conservatives like him are monsters, act like monsters, and then everyone supports them on the conservative side. Then it comes out that they suffer from something that they demonized lesser populations for having: substance abuse issues, character issues, legal issues, financial issues, whatever. And then they are rightly called out for their hypocrisy. And then the right-wingers are like, oh, so much for the tolerant left. Right? Like, that's Rush Limbaugh. That's Rush Limbaugh. The next thing I want to talk about is to kind of go into a little bit of the discussion about the Green New Deal, because it's pretty important. The narrative from Texas right now is that this is the Green New Deal's fault. For those of you who are in, I don't know if anybody here is from Texas and you're lucky enough to have power, let us know what it's like down there if you have relatives down there. Oh yeah, that's another one. Yes, Garrison right there. Thank you so much. There was basically a he was a smoker. A lot of people are, and would steadfastly, decades after it became accepted science, that smoking is bad for you, particularly with your lungs, he came out and said, oh, it's not that bad. The leftists are exaggerating it.
Struck me about Rush.
They want to take your freedoms, blah, 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 blah. And then the guy gets lung cancer. Now, of course, like, there could be multiple sources for your cancer. Some people smoke their whole lives, never get lung cancer. Some people don't smoke, get it, right? Like, I get it. You can't necessarily, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a oncologist, right? But it's just another example. It's just another example. Like, look, respect, people like, respect is not simply reverence or deference. In my view, to use the word respect is to treat someone as they deserve to be treated. And so I think part of that can be rooted in everyone deserves a base level of decency. And I think that can also be rooted in, everybody has, things they did in their lives and can be judged and evaluated on those things. And so when you say, why are you being disrespectful to Rush Limbaugh? Why are, not just me, but just like, progressives in particular today, why are we being quote unquote disrespectful to Rush Limbaugh? Well, I don't think that's an accurate descriptor. I think we're actually being quite respectful. We are looking at what Rush Limbaugh did and said and stood for and stood against, and who he stood with and stood against, and all of those things, and then acting appropriately. And then making a rational judgment that the world is better with him no longer a part of it. While also being able to acknowledge that for some people close to him, this loss is very difficult, and I wouldn't deny that. But from my perspective, I mean, I have to say that I have to say, why should I give him fake deference? I've looked at him and what he stood for and all these sorts of things, and I'm giving him respect. I'm looking at what he was and examining it and talking about it. And look, I'm not going to go absurdio ad reductum here and say would we show respect to this awful person, like Osama bin Laden or something? Because I'm not going to suggest, Rush Limbaugh was as bad as Hitler, for instance. I'm not going to do that. But certainly there are some people who have died that most people would agree it's not necessarily controversial to be happy that person died, without necessarily being disrespectful to that person. People asking why I'm trying to grow facial hair. Laziness is the correct answer. Laziness. That is the correct answer. So it's not unreasonable to say that, people evaluate somebody and then realize he's kind of a dick. He's kind of a dick. So I do want to play for you another video here, because
Limbaugh.
It really shows what you're seeing right now. It shows what we're seeing right now in Texas, about how they're trying to blame the Green New Deal, right? So in Texas right now, there are historic power outages. Hundreds of thousands, if not millions, have lost power. Hundreds of thousands, if millions, have lost power. John Bartlett says being lazy is pretty cool sometimes. So, yeah, being lazy is great sometimes. Honestly, people work really hard, and sometimes we deserve to be a little lazy. Sometimes we deserve to be a little lazy. It's okay. People ask if there's a way to watch the stream when it ends. Just, I pull them down, but I don't delete them. So if you save the link right now, click the share button. Yeah, feel free to share the stream. Save the URL, and you can come back to this stream anytime. It won't be taken down. It'll just be sort of archived in the background. Generally, YouTube doesn't like the algorithm. Like I tend to find, and a lot of other creators tend to find, that when you leave a stream up after airing it, it sort of underperforms. And therefore it hurts the rest of the channel. And it makes sense because most of my content are videos, 3 to 10 minutes long. And all of a sudden there's going to be a 2-hour stream there. Most of my audience doesn't tune in on all my streams, so they're not going to want to watch that video. And so it makes sense to sort of put that to the side a little bit. Ali Tucky says tipping just to anger the chat trolls. Thank you so much, Ali. I very much appreciate it. Thank you for your support. So, in Texas right now, they're having this big power outage madness. And it's clear what's causing it. Like, the crazy weather is causing it. Texas is getting a level of snow and a level of cold it isn't used to. Right? It isn't. The systems in place, from individual families to the entire state, are not designed for the weather they've been seeing. Right? They're not designed for it. And so the state is suffering. But if you listen to conservatives, and I'm going to play you a clip, this is Sean Hannity with the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott. They are blaming the Green New Deal.
Turbines. But my question is, if they have these rolling blackouts and you got freezing weather, and they're not reliable and it's use it or lose it, what good is it?
Sean, this shows how the Green New Deal would be a deadly deal for the United States of America. Texas is blessed with multiple sources of energy, such as natural gas and oil and nuclear, as well as solar and wind. But you saw from what...
Nope. Why is it? Let me refresh the link here. Sometimes it does that.
Oil, old-fashioned oil, and coal. I'm not against nuclear energy either. I'm not against wind turbines. But my question is, if they have these rolling blackouts and you got freezing weather, and they're not reliable and it's use it or lose it, what good is it?
Sean, this shows how the Green New Deal would be a deadly deal for the United States of America. Texas is blessed with multiple sources of energy, such as natural gas and oil and nuclear, as well as solar and wind. But you saw from what Trace said, and that is our wind and our solar got shut down, and they were collectively more than 10% of our power grid. And that thrust Texas into a situation where it was lacking power in a statewide basis. That was power that was spread out by that ERCOT organization that you were talking about. As a result, it just shows that fossil fuel is necessary for the state of Texas as well as other states to make sure that we'll be able to heat our homes in the wintertime and cool our homes in the summertime.
Gas.
So that's bullshit. That is bullshit. John Barlich is 100% right. John knocking it out of the park again. Deadly deal is no Green New Deal. 100%. Like long term, talking about saving the planet, yeah, 100%. Look, as he's hinting there, he's saying, more than 10%. 80% of Texas is fueled by traditional fossil fuel methods. And those things are freezing too. The issue in Texas is not specifically that the turbines for the wind power are freezing. It's that all of their mechanisms, including on some of their fossil fuel systems, are freezing. They are freezing. So it's not a green versus non-green energy issue in Texas right now. It's a lack of preparedness in Texas. And it's only compounded by the fact, as a lot of people have been alluding to in the chat, that Texas has a very deregulated, highly privatized, highly isolated power market. And what I mean by that third one in particular, which you may not know about, is that Texas has basically created a system to isolate itself from the national power grid. That Texas doesn't really exist on a national grid in the way many other states do. That Texas, due to its large size, has the ability to some degree to build its own power network, but also supposedly to stick it to the socialist federal government, build its own private network. Right? And so they created this problem because they designed systems that failed. Look, there's a really good rebuttal to this. And I don't always agree with MSNBC, but Chris Hayes is generally one of the least bad people on it. And so here's a good rebuttal from Chris Hayes on this.
Through the week.
This was from a couple days ago, or from yesterday. Here's a good rebuttal from Chris Hayes.
Operators daily forecast through the weekend.
So again, a lot of conservatives, and this is not just Greg Abbott, but Fox News and other sources, are making this about the Green New Deal supposedly being untenable and green energy being untenable. So this is a good mini rebuttal of this. I want to watch it with you.
Operators daily forecast through the weekend. Did you get all that? Okay, that's the people that run the Texas grid. Wind power outages are, quote, the least significant factor in the blackouts, and the main factors are frozen instruments at natural gas, coal, and even nuclear facilities.
Again, that's what they're saying. There are effects on the turbines and other green energy. There are. No one's denying that. But the weather is affecting the traditional fossil fuel power networks in Texas because they're not designed for cold weather as they are in other parts of the country.
It is just a lie that wind turbines, green energy, are the root causes of the problems in Texas right now. It is a lie like Donald Trump won the election, a lie like there was widespread voter fraud, a lie pumped into millions of people's brains as they watch TV. And let's be clear, this is probably as consequential a lie as any about the election, because energy and how we produce it is the single biggest issue this country will face in the medium term. I mean, this stuff is complicated. Let's be clear here, right? Everyone takes the power grid for granted unless you work on it for a living.
I mean, that's a good point by Wallace there, by Hayes, excuse me, that this is beyond any one election. This is about the survival of goddamn humanity, like the politics of energy. And as he notes that, unlike a lot of things where people have a sort of base knowledge of politics, I don't think about the energy grid. Most people don't. Even informed people don't always think about energy systems in a way that we all think, maybe, the 220 odd people watching. For those new to the stream, click the subscribe button, click the like button if you're here, and click the bell. Love to have you here, be on this stream.
It's among the most arcane areas of public policy. It's not like sparking great debate on cable news. But then, a few times a year, something like this happens, and we all have this moment where we remember the power grid is the foundation of modern civilization. It is also the key to overcoming climate change. Republicans and right-wing media, they want to take every policy issue and turn it into some painful culture war idiocy. And there's an interest to do it. The fossil fuel companies want this too, right? They want to turn into some culture where it is about the libs don't want you to have power. But we have an opportunity. We have a choice collectively as a country. We don't have to have politics about where we get our energy divided along the lines of abortion or policing. There's no reason for that to be connected. We can create a modern energy infrastructure that is more resilient to climate change and also cheaper and also serves people better and also can withstand extreme weather events and also doesn't heat the planet until we're in dire straits. We can do all that. In fact, there's lots of great news happening on that front. But the biggest obstacle will be these charlatans who will take every opportunity to lie to people for profit and for power. I want to bring in former presidential candidate, former Democratic...
Nom the Net suggests that I could put my link to my Patreon. Yeah, I could certainly do that. Nom the Net. I will try to remember and do that tonight and post a link. It's not going to necessarily be a perk because I post about it on social media. I post about it on the Discord. But yeah, it'll be like a service to patrons. I'll do a weekly post after the stream wraps and just let people know that that's the link. You can check it out at your leisure. Again, if you have the link to it, like, then you should be good to go, but if that's a good way of getting it. So, like, that is basically what's at stake here. You have some people who, even beyond the politics of a Green New Deal, are so embedded in the cult of dead dinosaur juice that, like, everything against it has to be seen as, like, a threat. Right? So, like, if you are... If this sort of crisis happens, then it's based on, like a conspiracy by the left. It's a conspiracy. When it isn't. It's just like, you need modernized health networks. You need modernized energy networks, excuse me. And look, one of the arguments here is that you know, with the wind turbines, that they're freezing due to the cold weather. And look, there's something to be said for that. But, like, let's not forget that the turbines are specific to Texas.
Daily forecast.
If you look here, there are turbines in Antarctica. Look at all these. Guys, I'm just scrolling here through Twitter. These are turbines in Antarctica. Look, they got some cute little penguins. These are turbines in Antarctica. Turbines, if designed appropriately for the weather, work. They have them in Russia. They have them in Denmark. They have them in Norway. They have them in Antarctica. The argument that ipso facto, because our turbines froze in Texas, they're going to freeze everywhere else, is just wrong. And so basically what you're seeing right now, what's happening right now, is like a fundamental desire to put ideological politics ahead of, like, the survival of people in Texas. The governor of Texas, senators like Cornyn and Cruz, they are spending most of their time with this crisis, not actually helping the people of fucking Texas, but going around and fighting the Green New Deal. There is no Green New Deal yet. Like, you think the way they're talking is that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez implemented the Green New Deal in Texas last year, and it's failing. The Green New Deal does not exist anywhere yet. It has not been implemented in the United States. Doesn't exist. That sucks from my perspective, but on the other hand, you can't blame the Green New Deal or even like a milquetoast plan like Biden's energy plan on what's happening in Texas. Texas hasn't elected Democrats at the statewide level in more than a generation. Beyond local politics, Texas is unambiguously, ubiquitously dominated by Republicans. Every failure in Texas at the highest levels is 1,000% a Republican problem. In particular, again with energy, because they made a conscious choice to separate themselves from the national grid. It is on the Republicans and only the Republicans. I hate to be black and white, but literally, this is entirely the Republicans' fault, what's happening in Texas. Entirely. Without nuance, without any debate, it's their fault. And they know that. And so rather than say we fucked up and we're going to do our best to help people suffering and freezing and starving and seeing that the only way to get a place to stay in some places is to pay like $1,500 a night at the Ramada, that like, well, I guess it's socialism's fault. Yeah, last was Ann Richards. That was a great episode of King of the Hill. Go watch King of the Hill. Great show if you haven't watched it. But in particular, the episode where Bill dates Ann Richards, hilarious. John Bartlett says, what about, where are all those anti-AOC leftists talking about? She already put Green New Deal at Texas. She's the best sleeper agent. John Bartlett is right. While everyone was complaining about AOC not doing anything, all the people from the door side of the YouTube left, AOC was James Bonding her way into Texas to put in socialist energy plans. So, like that's kind of where we're at with this one, right? Like it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And look, I want to make one thing clear though. Like I want to make one thing clear that like I also don't want to tolerate like DNC lib smugness. You guys might have seen this. Let me know if you have. Like a lot of people are like, you know, like and retweet if you're safe and cozy and warm in a blue state tonight. Like somehow like the Texans deserve this. And I hate that kind of like that smugness that like certain like libs have on social media for like just wanting people to suffer in Texas or in Alabama or in Mississippi or in Louisiana or, you know, any of the generally red, very red southern states. And like one, super counterproductive, right? Because these people already hate the libs because they think the libs hate them. And then you go on Twitter and you see blue check libs spitting on working class people freezing in the dark in Texas, right? It also matters that like even a state like Texas, which votes red on pretty much every statewide election, you know, almost half the people in the state vote Democrat. And the state is full of minority populations that have been historically marginalized but just get outvoted by the traditional, like, base of Texas, the Republican base. And so it's like you're saying to everyone in Texas, you deserve this, even though, you know, a substantial minority, still a minority, but a substantial one, voted differently. Right? Like, I hate that argument. Like, it makes it about the culture war. Like, it makes it about the culture war. Like, you voted for the Republicans, and therefore, like, you're not part of my, like, tribe or clan, and therefore your suffering is meaningless to me, or I derive pleasure from it. When the correct answer is what we've been talking about, which is to say, look, people are suffering in Texas. We should raise money through charities to help. We should push for a national declaration of emergency. We should do everything in our power to help these people however we can. But also, we should criticize the leaders in these states. That whether people voted for Republicans or not, they are entitled to a government that doesn't put ideology over their literal survival. That's how you do it. You don't go on social media and mock people for living in a red state. Like that's ridiculous to me. It's absolutely ridiculous to me. Like, let me see if I can find one of these. Like, some people are saying, like, even Stephen King, literal Stephen King, is like, basically, it's like, it's your fault for voting for these people. And, like, look, I get it to some degree, but, like, literal millionaire Hollywood author, I don't know where Stephen King lives, but, you know, he's got a lot of movies about his books. Hollywood author Stephen King is going to people and is being like, hey, Texas, keep voting for officials who don't believe in climate change and supported privatization of the power grid. Maybe in 4 years you can vote for Trump again. He believes in the latter but not the former. Perfect, right? The nature of how you do this matters. You have to show the compassion. You have to show the compassion. And look, like, Stephen King, he's not just some random guy either. I'm not picking on somebody that's got, like, 1,400 followers or even, like, 5,000 followers and tweets out something dumb. It's like Stephen King is a very powerful, influential man. And, like, what he says has ripple effects, in popular media. And he should be rightfully criticized when he makes mistakes like this.
Because, like, cult, this.
So, Sinister says, thanks for the live stream, Christo. Well, thank you for being here. I love doing these live streams. I love doing them. A lot of fun to just have, like, you guys here. A lot of you I see in my comments or in the Discord. Actually, while people are here, let me drop the link to the Discord. Always a great place to hang out. Great place to hang out. Great place to talk with people. Check that out. In between streams, it's a great place to hang out. But like let's be clear, right? Like this, like people are trying to play politics here with like the lives of folks. They are really putting ideology over survival. On that note, I don't know if you saw this. I didn't do a video on it in a dedicated sense because it was based on timing and all these sorts of things. But a now former mayor of a city in Texas basically freaked out over all of this, basically saying that, you know, all these freezing people in the dark needed to pull themselves up off their bootstraps or pull themselves up with their own bootstraps. So let me look this, like you might have seen this post. You might have seen this. So here it is. Okay, I don't know if you guys are going to be able to... you should be able to read this, but I'll read it out as well. So this was posted yesterday by Colorado City Mayor Tim Boyd. So Colorado City is not in Colorado, it's in Texas. And he tweeted this. Let me hurt some feelings while I have a minute. No one owes you or your family. Guys, it's going to be really hard to read out loud because there's a lot of typos and misspellings and punctuation issues, but I'll do my best. You and your family, no one owes you and your family anything, nor is it the local government's responsibility to support you during trying times like this. Sink or swim, it's your choice. The city and county, along with power providers or any other service, owes you nothing. Jesus fucking Christ, guys. Do you hear this? Do you hear this? Even if you're like a libertarian, I'm just going to grab a little bit more water. I'll be right back. Even if you're like a libertarian and you believe in small government and you believe that like the quote unquote nanny state is too cumbersome, even a lot of libertarians would say this is bullshit. Because what they would say is the government has very limited responsibilities, which includes basic public safety. That whether it's policing or disaster protection, fire, these sorts of things, that most, like there might be some ANCAPs that want private ambulances and private firefighters and private police and things like that, but even mainstream libertarianism doesn't always support those. They would say that, look, the government doesn't owe you health care, but they do owe you the ability to not die freezing in a heap. And he says the power service owes you nothing. Guys, you literally fucking pay for power. You pay for it with your money. And then when you need it, it's a service you paid for. Imagine going to like a restaurant, ordering a meal, and then you pay for it, and then the owner comes out 40 minutes later, and he's like, we're not giving you your food. Pull yourselves up from your fucking bootstraps and stop begging for shit. CMT says, where's Smokey? You're doing great. Mr. Opinion on things last week. And David Vospor with the thumbs up pair. Guys, thank you so much for your support. Really appreciate it. It's always, and Sheldon with a pair doing a happy dance with a one of those whistle things and a party hat. So thank you so much. I mean, yeah, I missed the stream last week. For those who know, I missed the stream. Just wasn't feeling it. You know, I need to... A lot of creators have been talking about this, that like, you gotta like avoid burnout. I'm not nearly as prolific as Hassan, but you know, Hassan was saying that, he's like, look man, I just need to take some time. And I mean, I have a child as well. So it's just like last week I was like, look, I wasn't up for it. And I didn't want to do a stream I wasn't up for and like disappoint you guys and those sorts of things. So yeah, just to clarify here, this guy is literally he is literally saying, like, let me see if I can pull this up for you guys on that one. There we go. I could pull this up here, and then maybe it'll be up here. Okay, yeah. Okay, so just for perspective, this is a guy saying you are not entitled to the services you bought. To my conservatives here, because we got some conservatives here. For example, Big Chilean is like, oh, bye libtards. Like, dude, Big Chilean, large South American, like, Rush Limbaugh celebrated the deaths of people all the time. I'm treating him as he treated others. I'm golden ruling his ass. No, Hassan and I know. Hassan has no idea who I am. I'm just saying that he is, he's one of the biggest creators, and he's talked about like burnout and stuff, and taking care of yourself, and I think that's important. So, would conservatives really support the narrative that if you pay for a service, you're not entitled to it? I'm sick and tired of people looking for a damn handout. If you don't have electricity, you step up and you come up with a game plan to keep your family warm and safe. If you have no water, you deal without and think outside the box to survive and supply water to your family. So, like, this mayor, what he's suggesting here, like, and maybe he's not suggesting it directly, but implicitly, what he's suggesting is the city, the fundamental structures of basic governance, your community, your power service, the things of that are necessary for life, heat, water, these sorts of things are luxury demands. And that if you don't have them right now, it's your responsibility to find them. And so, if I'm a person reading this, what this mayor is effectively saying is it's fucking purge time. It's the purge. Except it's like, you're allowed to take what you can, think outside the box however you can, for your family to survive. That's what he's saying. Like, if you are sitting at home in the cold because you have no power and are sitting there waiting for someone to come rescue you because you're lazy, see, he's spelling it, you're there with the, he's not putting the U apostrophe R-E, is direct result of your raising. So here he's probably going into fucking racism here. I know it's not explicit, but often one of the arguments is that, it's not racism why certain minority groups struggle. It's just they have bad parents. And bad grandparents and bad great-grandparents, and they are bad parents. So what he's basically saying here is that, like, by virtue of your bad genetics and culture, you're going to die starving in a heap, and you deserve it. Only the strong will survive and the weak will perish. Of course, he spells perish wrong there. He spells parish as parish priest, and not perish as in to die or disappear or whatever. Again, this is the fucking mayor. This is a mayor. This is a mayor of the community, right? Like, this is the mayor. So, like, from my perspective, I'm kind of aghast here. Folks, God has given us the tools to support ourselves in times like this. Yeah, it's called fucking society, Boyd, Timothy. That's what it is. That's society. Even if, like humans, like, let's say you believe in a divine being, and many people do, whether they're Christians or another faith or spiritual. In a sense, it's like, even if you believe in that, humans have come together and built societies. So that's what should happen. That in times of need, society should come together to care for one another. That's what we built. And he says, this is sadly a product of a socialist government. What fucking where is this socialist government? Where is this socialist government? Like, this is what James, John was talking about. This is what John was talking about, where it's like AOC snuck into Texas and made it socialist while no one was watching, apparently. Right? Like, we have David Vospoor saying here, what if they raid that former mayor's house and set his furniture on fire? How's that for a game plan? I mean, look, I am not condoning that action necessarily, but the reality is, like, that's basically what he's saying. It's like, look, man, you as mayor told me I need to do what I can for my family to survive, so I'm going to come and take some kindling from your house. Right? Yes, and Rob Ford was also a mayor. Yeah, there's a lot of awful people who have been mayors. So it says here, this is sadly a product of a socialist government where they feed people to believe that the few will work and others will become dependent for handouts. It's like, I love how people always, like, accuse socialism of the things capitalism does. Like, he writes it weird here, but, like, you know, it's like, you know, there's a small group of people that are leeching off society, or there are people that leech off society while others work to support them. It's like, dude, you're literally talking about, like, the 0.1%. Am I sorry that you've been dealing without electricity and water? Yes. No, you're not. Like, I like how in the last 2/3 of this, he sort of realizes he comes off as an asshole and tries to mellow it a little bit by suggesting that I feel bad for you. It's like, no, you fucking don't. No, you don't. But I'll be damned if I'm going to provide for anyone that is capable of doing it themselves. We have lost sight of those in need and those that take advantage of the system and mesh them in one group. Bottom line, quit crying and looking for a handout. Get off your ass and take care of your own family. Bottom line, don't a part of the problem. Be a part of the solution. So that was the mayor of that town. Apparently he is no longer mayor, and apparently he is no longer mayor, and was really mad that people were mad at him for that. You know, people were mad at him. Let me try to get an update on this. I want to see if there's like a new update. Okay, so according to this is a USA Today article. Just 1 second. The Post was seen as millions as Texans were without power following a winter storm. Utilities from Minnesota to Texas and Mississippi implemented rolling blackouts to ease the burden on power grids. Boyd signaled his resignation in a lengthy second post, saying he never intended to speak for the city or Mitchell County, as he was only just a citizen and not mayor anymore. However, it is unclear when exactly Boyd resigned. The Dallas Morning News reported that he had been scheduled to speak at a city council meeting last week. Boyd said in the second post that his wife also faced repercussions from his rant. She was fired from her job. He took exception to the situation. I admit there are things said all the time that I don't agree with, but I would never harass you or your family to the point that they would lose their livelihood as a form of income. It's like, dude, you were literally telling people starving and freezing. Oh yeah, Bernie was a mayor. I take that back. All mayors are perfect. There have been no bad mayors. So, look, I don't support his wife getting fired for this. I don't. I don't think that's fair. I'm being honest, right? I don't support his wife being fired for that. But, like, it's awfully rich, I think, to see his wife face the consequences of his actions and for him to freak out about it when it's like, well, I mean, that's the cutthroat society you want to build. If your wife was smarter, she wouldn't have married a fucking asshole like you, and she wouldn't have gotten fired. So I guess that's her fault. Like, look, I get to a degree him saying, like, look, I'm like how big is Colorado City? Let me check this out. Okay, Colorado City only has a population of like 4,000 people. So I get, in a sense, that, like, it is like, it is a town in, like, sort of like, like, close, fairly, like, it's kind of in the, it's not in the middle of nowhere necessarily, but it's, you know, a couple hours west of Fort Worth and Dallas area, sort of halfway between Fort Worth and the New Mexico border type thing. And so it's not a big city. So I could see him say, for instance, like, look, like, I'm trying my best here, but, like, I only have so much power as a small town mayor. Like, bear with me, right? Okay, well, yeah, I haven't seen that post from his wife, but if his wife was doing the same thing, then yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, if his wife... if his wife said those things, I mean, yeah, 100%. Somebody says I should book a conversation with Vaush. Yeah, I talked to Vaush. Yeah, 100%. I would do that. We do follow each other on social media. So I talked to him at some point. We'll see if that ever happens. If we have, like, a reason to have a discussion. Sir Fappington says, is there any good books on Canadian history from a leftist perspective? I've talked about them a few times. One I often always recommend is The Fate of Labor Socialism by Jim Naylor. It's a great book on the early CCF. I haven't mentioned this one as directly. One second. But this is a really fun book. So, for Americans who don't know, in Canada, it's not anymore, but a couple years ago, it was the 100th anniversary of the Winnipeg General Strike, which was a massive citywide strike, and at the time, Canada's third biggest city, basically, for like weeks. There was a big strike. A majority of the working class went on strike, not just union workers, but basically the entire working class went on strike in this city. And it was a seminal moment in Canadian history. There was another, around the same time, there was actually another really big one, not as big, in Seattle. There was a big general strike. And this is like a graphic history of it. So there's lots of history books on it, but this is like a comic book. It's like a graphic novel. And it's got lots of actual, like, good history in it. But if you see here, it's like an artistic retelling. And so this is really cool. It's the Graphic History Collective. And if you go to Between the Lines, you can get it. It's not too expensive either. And of course, I can't resist plugging some little-known loser named Christo Aivalis and his book, The Constant Liberal, Pierre Trudeau, Organized Labor, and the Canadian Social Democratic Left. This was my PhD dissertation transformed into a book. So shortened, tightened, improved, basically. And this is my scholarly monograph. Unlike that, which has got a lot of fun pictures and stuff, there are literally no fun pictures in my book. But it's a retelling of Pierre Trudeau's political life from a socialist perspective, which had never been done on a book level project. So those are all really good books. Those are all really good books. If you like my content, you'll at the very least like these books from an ideological perspective. They're all, from like the left tradition. And this is a really good one, in particular, Winnipeg 1919. If you just want to learn about like a seminal moment in Canadian and left history in a very like digestible format. And you don't necessarily need to know a whole bunch about Canada to get a lot of that book. My book, you can get it through UBC Press. You can likely purchase it from, if you Google my name and book, it'll come up. It might be sold through a university press like Chicago Press in the States. Unfortunately, one of the places I know you can get it, because my book isn't big enough to be sold in a lot of stores, you can buy it on Amazon. I know that a lot of people don't like buying things on Amazon, but my book is for sale on Amazon, for instance. I have done some research on A.R. Mosher, who was a Canadian labor leader, but now that I've sort of transitioned out of academia, and I'm doing like YouTube basically full time, I haven't had as much time to do research, and especially in the last year, because Dimitrios was out of daycare for most of 2020, and actually just started going back to daycare like this week, after going for a little bit in the fall. I haven't had a lot of time to do basically anything but the couple videos I could do a day when he was here. And so I'm not really working on a book project intensely right now, but that's the project I was working on sort of as I transitioned out of academia. I mean, in the long term, I might like to write some more books, but I don't know if that's like the thing for me right now. I do want to do more writing in general. Like recently I've written for Jacobin. I write for a lot of Canadian left publications, and I'd love to do that some... Excuse me. I'd love to do that some more. I mean, my book, I wouldn't say it's a dry read, but it is a scholarly text, right? It's generally books from a university press are written in a certain way that like books for a popular press aren't, right? Like they're written for the purposes of like publishing academic research. And so it by definition, it's going to be a bit different than publishing a book with, say, a left-wing publisher that has popular outreach in mind. That's just the nature of where the book was prepared. H.S. Ross says, but Christo, you are forgetting that socialism is when the government does stuff, and it's more socialism the more stuff it does. And if it does a whole lot of stuff, then it's communism. Yeah, that's a great point. That's for those who don't know, it's like a very popular meme, which is like socialism is when the government does stuff, and the more stuff it does, the more socialistier it is. And it's sort of a ripping on the fact that what actually defines socialism is not necessarily government ownership or control, but the amount of the economy controlled by the workers through the direct ownership of the means of production. Nonetheless, I tend to think, at least somewhat, that like my definition of socialism is perhaps somewhat different. That I don't think you can build a truly socialist society simply through worker ownership. Because I think, and I've talked about this before, I think socialism requires three things. It requires, in large part, the democratization of the means of production through direct worker ownership. But that's not enough on its own. You also need the material guarantee of basic human needs and most human wants. And you also need through the state, and this is what I think separates me from being, say, an anarchist or what have you, the commanding heights of the economy controlled by everyone democratically through the state. The reason I make that point is that hypothetically, if all socialism was every working person owning their means of production through the workplace, what systems would be in place to take care of those who could not work? What systems would be in place to ensure some sort of material equality based on which industries you happen to own? What would happen, for instance, if certain industries became more powerful? Would it not necessarily be possibly the case that you would create caste systems and oligopolistic systems where the workers who own the nuclear plants, or the workers who own the energy grid, or the finance systems, or any other like centralized, highly choke pointable system will have more power than the workers that own, grocery stores, or the workers that own restaurants, or the workers that own small businesses and medium-sized businesses where they can't necessarily shut down the whole economy. You need some sort of central system, not necessarily one central system. It could be based on a combination of national, regional, and local models to guarantee some kind of equality between people. I don't think necessarily that having every workplace sort of be owned by the workers and then the state withering away otherwise will lead to a just society. And in fact, I think what will likely happen is the workers that own the most productive and wealthiest and most essential quote-unquote parts of the economy may use that to take advantage of workers in less advantaged positions. And they will make sure their children rise up in those systems. And so to be a worker in the most coveted Soviets will 100% ultimately lead to what is essentially a decentralized form of like fiefdoms and almost nobility. Because it'll be like, we, the workers who own the power system, have decided that we're going to charge an unlimited amount of money for our power, and you, the workers in the other systems, will have to suck it because we'll go on strike and shut down the power system. I don't know. My view is neither is socialism only about the government doing things, but I do think that you need a strong government doing a lot of things to build socialism. I am not a withering of the state kind of guy. For me, the ideal system does include a strong democratic state accountable to the people. And I don't necessarily see, even in my end goal, that going away. Even though I am a socialist, and I do believe in the end of capitalism, and I do believe that private ownership of the means of production should be abolished beyond very small scale businesses. Maybe where, an individual plumber wants to run their own business or something like that, Like, I think, honestly, I do think it could be anarcho-feudalism. Like, I do think that a model that essentializes things down to workers own their means of production and that's that. How are we going to build healthcare? How are you going to build a national health service without a state? You know what's going to happen? It's like, because you work at the worker-owned industry of power, you get this great health insurance. We end up with the same fucking problem, which is that if you're in a bad industry, or if you can't get work because of some sort of illness or disability or what have you, without a government, there won't be any health insurance for you. So I honestly think that, there's a real risk in that, socialism has nothing to do with government ownership, would lead to some of the aspects of anarcho-capitalism. I do. Bernie Sanders said, should have been president, plain and simple. Yeah, I agree. Joe Biden, Joe Biden won the election, and he's the rightful president, and the people chose him. But Bernie Sanders would have been a far better president. A far better person, a far better president. And not just for progressives, but I think he would be a better representative of the American people. But Joe Biden's president. Like, it is what it is. HS Ross says, I heard his wife was also calling for the purge like he was. Yeah. I mean, HS, I'd have to look that up, but if so, that's definitely pretty bad. John Bartlett says, if there was a Bernie biopic, who should play him? Whew, that's a good one. I mean, like, SNL has Larry David play Bernie Sanders, right? Like, whenever Bernie is in the news, like during the primary, Larry David was Bernie Sanders. But I don't know if Larry would want to do like a movie on Bernie that was, say, like a serious movie about him. Not to say there couldn't be funny moments, but like, it wouldn't be a comedy about Bernie Sanders. If it was a biopic, it would be like how Bernie rose to be the most famous Democratic Socialist since Eugene Debs, basically, right? And like, how does that happen? And like, I don't know. I mean, from a looking perspective, that's who it would be. HS Ross says, oh yeah, totally didn't mean to challenge your three-pronged view. Just explaining that from the Texas mayor criticizing socialist government. Yeah, HS, for 100%. I wasn't suggesting that you were doing that necessarily. But yeah, I mean, yeah, you're 100% right that the argument is that if socialism is government, then the government doing something is socialism, right? But I mean, this guy's making a really bad argument against socialism, like from like a debating perspective. He's like, the problem here is socialism, and the problem is that like socialism just gives you things without having to quote unquote work for them and all these sorts of things. And capitalism is all about freedom and rugged individualism and these sorts of things. And then it's like, well, you know, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Timothy Boyd, we're getting a crash course in your rugged individualism. People are starving. People are freezing. People don't have power. And this is all beyond COVID, right? This is beyond the COVID crisis. And you're telling them to fuck off. Basically, you're telling them to go to hell. So, like, what you're showing them is, oh, socialism means I'm warm, I'm taken care of, I have basic faith in my government infrastructure, and capitalism is, I'm freezing here, and my mayor is making fun of me on social media. It's not a very good argument. Somebody says Chevy Chase playing Bernie Sanders. I mean, I can kind of see it. But I think in terms of actors that can play Bernie, it is Larry David would be like the most obvious choice from my perspective. Yeah, like, and so, but although I don't know if you guys remember this is actually a funny thing from the primaries. Back during the primaries, and this is maybe where you got the Chevy Chase thing. Back during the primaries, there was a moment where Politico did like little portraits of all the candidates, and their Bernie portrait for one of them looked a lot like Chevy Chase. So I don't know if you guys see this right here, but this is, let me bring this up here. Right here. Okay, good. pull this up here. This was the picture they gave for Bernie. Let me see if I can just pull up, like... This is it right here. This picture. That really looks like Chevy Chase. So, I guess, to be fair to those that were saying Chevy, like, this illustration by Michael Howeller, back from the primary. This is obviously the night Bernie won New Hampshire. Of course, those were better times. That was about a year ago from today. Very close to a year almost exactly, right, guys? When was the New Hampshire primary? When was that? Let me look. 2020. The 2020, yeah, it was February 11th. So we're off by a week. And he really looks like Chevy there. So I wanted you guys to see that. Just, I don't have anything else to add, but like, maybe that's an argument for Bernie being represented by Chevy Chase. So, yeah. So, that was the better time, guys. I mean, COVID, we knew COVID was a thing, but it wasn't here yet. Not in North America, at least. Nevada was just about to happen. South Carolina hadn't happened yet. You know? Oh yeah, I'm a big fan of Community. Yeah, Vice did a good job of Bernie hear me out. You know, John, I was gonna say Danny DeVito is a Bernie guy. Like, look, like Danny DeVito, I am a man short of height, close to the ground. And so I want to support my fellow short kings. But unless you're going to pair him with other very short actors, I don't know if it's going to work. So for perspective, Danny DeVito height, he is 1.47 meters, which is about 4'10". So he's quite short. I'm not that short. I'm like 5'6". But Bernie Sanders' height is about 1.83 meters, which is 6 feet almost flat. So Bernie Sanders is slightly taller than the average man, just by a little bit, and Danny DeVito is very, very small. Yeah, no being racist in the chat, guys. No being racist. Yeah, so I'm not saying Bernie is defined by his height, but I mean, if you were going to have DeVito play it, it would almost have to be like an absurdist comedy. Like, it would have to be like an absurdist comedy of like, this is Bernie Sanders, but we're just going to ignore the fact that all of a sudden Bernie Sanders is like 17 inches shorter, 15 inches shorter than he used to be. Yeah. Well, I mean, like, most politicians are tall. Historically, like, most U.S., like most U.S. presidents, like, Trump is tall. Trump is, like, Which is why when you see Barron, Barron Trump, the kid's a giant, right? Because Trump is like 6'3". Trump is 6'3". He's not a small man. Biden is basically the same height as Bernie. But like most presidents have been pretty tall, right? In fact, basically the average height for a president looks to be like 5'10", 5'11", right? But a lot of those guys were from like the 1800s. And being that tall in the 1800s was more was rarer. I mean, maybe Trump lies about his height, but that's what they have Trump's height as. He's the third tallest president ever, 6'3". But I don't know if that's accurate. Some sources put his height at 6'2". So there's, I guess, a little bit of debate about his height. So guys, I'm gonna wrap a little. I know I usually wrap sometime between 10 and 10:30. My voice is getting a little hoarse, and I don't want to force it and like have it like play in my videos tomorrow. So I'm gonna wrap a little bit early. Before I go, I just want to say a few things. One, thanks so much for everyone that watched the video. I know a lot of people, I think because of the topic, maybe stopped in, never did before. If you've stuck around, please consider subscribing, clicking the bell. I do daily political videos from a left perspective. If you want to hear from my perspective on the daily news, you're welcome to be a part of the community. I dropped it earlier, but let me drop it again. I have a link to the Discord. The Discord's a great place to keep updates on the channel. For instance, when I post a video and it doesn't have notifications because you can only get 3 notifications in 24 hours, things like that, I make sure to notify people in the Discord that I have a video coming so that even if they have the bell clicked but they don't see it, they get notifications. A lot of great discussions there. A lot of great, jokes and memes. It's still a small subreddit, but it's growing, so do consider joining. If you want to follow me in between my videos and my streams, you can do so on Twitter. My Twitter is just Christo. I'll drop a link, but it's basically just my name, no spaces, no dashes, or anything like that. And you can follow me there for my takes on things, including things that I maybe didn't make a video on. Beyond that, if you want to support the channel, one of the things you guys can do is watch the videos. Again, if you see a video and you click on it and you watch it and you like it and all those sorts of things, leave a comment. YouTube sees those as positive signals to the algorithm, and they use that as a determination about whether they're going to show that video to new audiences or not, right? Like, are they going to show that to some random person based on the performance of the video? And so if you guys watch a video, that gives a good signal. If you scroll by a video, it gives a bad signal and the video gets suppressed. So the biggest thing you can do is to watch the videos. If you want to support the channel on an ongoing basis, you can become a channel member here on YouTube, or you can become a member of the Patreon. You'll get things like your name at the end cards and things like that. And finally, if you want to support the channel on a one-time basis, you can do so via PayPal. I should have that link in the description as well, where you can just make like a one-time donation if you want to support the channel but don't want to like commit to, like a monthly payment. So guys, this was great. I had a lot of fun. I will see you next week for a stream, and I will see you maybe I'll check. I always check to see if I missed anything during the stream. But in any case, I'll have videos for you tomorrow, at least a couple. And again, thank you so much for spending your time with me. Very much appreciate it. Have a good one, and I will see you soon.